allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to our Monday, February 17th school board meeting. We will start with our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. Seek board approval for the agenda that you received last week.
Move for approval.
We have a motion from Dr. Malco.
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Kelly. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. Mr.
Aye.
Marshall. Thank you. Dr. Malco.
Aye.
Mrs. Talent.
Aye.
Ms. Kelly.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Is there any correspondence this evening?
There is not, Mrs. Seuss. Thank you.
All right, we'll start with our liaison committee updates. Mr. Marshall.
I have nothing to report.
Dr. Malco.
I was not able to attend the Education Foundation meeting, so I believe Mrs. Talent is going to give a report on that because she was able to attend. As far as legislative, boy, I sure hope that you're watching what's going on, not only in the state of Indiana, but at the federal level. Huge changes are coming about, and it kind of frightens me. So just be aware of what's going on out there. If you ever want information about what is happening, Dr. Baracco is always very well versed. He keeps totally up to date on everything going on. So it'd be easy to make a phone call to him to say, hey, what's going on? I know that there's a group of us that are going to start a letter writing campaign. If any of you are interested in that, just send me an email and I'll add you to the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Talent.
I don't have anything to report this evening. The meeting for Dyer will be.
Here, speak up, please.
Oh, here we go. Sorry. I don't have anything to report for the Dyer redevelopment. Their meeting will be coming up. And as far as the Wellness Committee, we had an opportunity to meet last week. The committee is looking forward to putting together a couple, or at least one incentive this summer, couch to a 5K. So that was really good to hear. Lots of good things going on.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
For the Cherville Parks Department, the Park Board and the Town Council will be having a joint session soon to discuss future plans for Ileana. And I don't have anything to report for the Redevelopment Commission.
All right, and for my committees, I just have Dollars for Scholars. March 1st is the deadline to apply for those scholarships that'll be handed out in May. So with that, we'll move to our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you again, Mrs. Seuss. Seek board approval for the minutes from our regular board meeting on Monday, February 3rd. Also seek board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received in your packets last week.
Motion to approve?
Motion for Ms. Kelly, and I will second that. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Marshall.
Aye.
Dr. Malco.
Aye.
Mrs. Talent.
Aye.
Ms. Kelly. Aye. And I am an aye. Motion passes. We have no public comments regarding action items, so we'll move into our official school board business topics regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. For our first item this evening, we do have the pleasure of recognizing some outstanding students from Kaler Middle School. So at this time, I'd like to invite up Mr. Newton, and the rest of us can reassemble down front.
Good evening, board members and district administration. It is my pleasure tonight to recognize one of our outstanding groups at KMS, our theater department. Just a couple years ago, our directors, Holly Laird and Courtney Palace, they approached me wanting to start a junior thespian troupe at Kaler, which they started a couple years ago. And just a couple years later, a couple weeks ago, they were crowned state champions in the state of Indiana. So very proud moment. Extremely proud moment for us at KMS and our awesome students. So Great job. So at this time, I would like to recognize and have our directors come up, Courtney Palace and Holly Laird.
Yeah, then people at home can hear
Okay.
you.
All right, so in the spring of 2022, myself and Holly Laird approached Mr. Newton about chartering a junior thespian troupe at Kaler Middle School. 1 year later, we inducted 51 students into our newly established junior thespian troupe 10511. The troupe has gone on to thrive, garnering regional and statewide attention for excellence in middle school theater. This past competition season, our troupe's performance of Whispers won the Northridge Regional Competition, qualifying them to compete at state. They also took home Best Tech, Best Ensemble, and Individual Acting Awards for Carson Cuevas, Evie Miller, and Alexis Wendland. On January 25th of this year, the cast and crew performed Whispers at the Indiana Thespian State Conference in Avon, Indiana. After an outstanding performance that left their audience in tears, they were awarded first place in the junior play competition, scoring 40 points more than the second place show. Yes. Yes. And now we would like to recognize those students.
Okay, thank you guys again. Thank you. So we're just going to go down our list here. Olivia Camacho. Elena Castaneda. Sure, I think so. Maya Cerrito is not here. But Maya Cerrito.
Way to go.
Carson Cuevas. Riley Felady. I haven't seen Riley yet tonight. Evan Fies. Claire Fleming. Araceli Frosto. Quinn Hernandez. Audrey Johnson.
I want to say good job, and then reassemble over on that side so you.
Avery Johnson.
Hi to the board,
That's-
and then
Say-
take a picture for the
say-
website. Good job. Way to go. Great job. Good job.
Valeska Judah.
Way to go. Your hand is cold.
Gabriel Kazowitz. Ava Leal. Everson Luce. Elise McLaughlin. Evelyn Miller. Miranda O'Connor. Abby Orr. Evie, back this way.
Congratulations.
Alexis Popiella.
Well done.
Charlotte Reed, Sophia Rulander, Chloe Rubicki, Aaliyah Seegers, Sarah Sesniak, Alexis Wendelin, and Zachary Watkin.
Good job. Good job.
He's giving us ours, hold on.
Okay, if you can get your kids to kind of crunch together a little bit, or Jeannie's going to take a picture for the website. That's all we want. Thank you, Jeannie.
Hey, will you tell us about the trophies they have? Sure. When you're done? Yeah. Yeah, By the way, I saw those having concentrated.
If the parents and family members of these outstanding students could stand to be recognized for one quick round of applause. You're all good. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We are going to continue on with our meeting here in a minute, but if you want to stay, you're welcome. If you need to get home to do other activities, we understand that as well.
I asked if they could explain to us about the trophies.
Okay, microphone's still on.
Are they all for here? Yes. Okay, so we have two of the little ones. They are both for Best Technical and Best Ensemble. The shorter of the two that I think Avery has is the trophy from the regional win, and then the taller one that Olivia has is from our state competition win. Yes. That's the four. Yep. We did, yes. Yep. Oh, hold on. Okay.
Well, thanks to everybody for coming out on this cold night. It was nice to see all your faces.
Okay, continue on. My next item is to give the board and listeners in the audience and at home an update of a couple important pieces of legislation that are being discussed at the State House. This is a budget year, so the first item is House Bill 1001, also known as the Budget Bill. The first iteration that came out Friday evening and was voted on today would be for 2% new money in 2026 and 2% in 2027. However, a sizable chunk of that money is going to expand vouchers for private school students to the tune of $139 million more in the first year and $52 million in the second year. It looks like public school tuition increases will be about 1.3% each of the next 2 years for us. The $160 million for curriculum materials is also going to roll into the foundation amount, which is the amount we get per child for tuition support. But it looks right now as if schools are going to have to absorb any of the excess costs on a permanent basis because that number did not increase at all. As I shared with our elected officials last week, with a 17.2% NIPSCO increase coming our way, if the Regulatory Commission approves it, and after all the conversations, that's what it looks like it's going to be, second time in 4 years. And also with us facing 20 to 25% new bus cost inflation, healthcare costs for us are going up. This small amount of increase from the state combined with potential property taxes, which I'm going to get to a second in Senate Bill 1, could cause us to have to cut some services that we're providing to students in our schools. So I just think it's important that we keep it on our radar. We're not even halfway through the session yet. There's going to be another revenue forecast update in April prior to the middle of April when they'll get together, the House and the Senate, and they'll iron out the very details of how much they actually can spend in this next 2-year budget. But the early viewpoint is looking rather grim for public ed. Senate Bill 1, the second item on my list, is also known as the property tax reform bill. For us, this is the money that goes to help us pay for transportation, pay for some repairs, pay for our NIPSCO bill, pay for other overhead costs to maintain our 10 facilities. It looks like in the first year, if the current plan goes through, we'd be down about $1 million, and then about another $900,000 in the second year of the 2-year budget. And it's just important that everybody recognize that when we lose money on the operations side, you know, you have to pay NIPSCO, so that means we'd end up transferring more money out of our education fund into the operations side to pay those overhead costs. The other pieces of Senate Bill 1 that have rolled in already, and it looks like all the important stuff per a couple people who I read on a regular basis have said the most important pieces of legislation will roll into Senate Bill 1 before it's all said and done. One of the pieces is that all referenda will be moved to November. So our 8 years is up in the spring of '26. So a year from now would be when we would go. But if they change the law, we would move that renewal to November of '26. Another piece that showed up in there is it's requiring the Department of Local Government Finance to create a transfer portal, is what they're calling it, to allow every single resident to compare their current tax rate to what their new rate would be if a referendum passes. I actually think this is a good thing. I think this is a benefit to us, because if we go for the same amount, the question on the ballot as it's currently written, even if you are just doing a renewal and trying to keep your tax the same, the question has the word increase in it. So it tricks some people into thinking you're going up when you're really just keeping it the same. So if those same folks would go into the independent parties calculator and put in their home, and they would see that if they vote yes, their tax stays the same, I think that helps school districts like Lake Central, who use the money to provide additional services to students so that we can be above average, not just an average school district or below average. But it is the extra support that's critical, and it allows us to do special things for students. The other piece that I just want to get on the board screen, again, it was on our January 22nd board meeting. House Bill 1230 and Senate Bill 287 are both pieces of legislation that are seeking to make board members run with a party affiliation. Historically, we've run as nonpartisan positions. The Senate bill side requires everybody to run in a primary. The House version would just require you to run in the general election. And both bills are still alive with 1 week to go before the end of the first half of the session. So given that they're both still alive, it's likely that this change is going to become law, in my opinion. There's still a lot of talking going on, but that's sort of where we are. And there's a lot of other legislation impacting education, and in 2 weeks I'll bring more of it to you. And the one piece that we won't stop looking at, unlike the one piece, the two pieces are House Bill 1001 and Senate Bill 1, because they both impact our revenue. And while we can adjust to lots of other rules and requirements and extra trainings and fewer trainings, the money piece is what can really handcuff us, meaning it can really impact what we're trying to do for the students we serve. So we'll continue to watch it, and we hope our constituents and stakeholders continue to watch it too. I'd take any questions from the board at this time.
I don't have any questions, Dr. Rocco, but I certainly do appreciate your summaries and the way that you keep us updated. With this necessity to be affiliated with a party, do you think that is really a possibility?
For sure.
For sure. Wow. Wow. Okay, thank you.
Okay, my other topic for tonight is timely. I just wanted to review for the board and our community our weather cancellation criteria and process. Try to do this for the board and the community every couple of years. Going into this evening, we have some pretty cold temperatures, And historically, long before I became superintendent, the Lake and Porter County superintendents got together and set a criteria for wind chill of -20. So the current forecast for tomorrow is like -4 at 7 a.m. and -16 wind chill. So it's pretty close to that cutoff. I've had some people say, well, it's close enough, do it, mainly high school students when they email me. But it's like we like to have a criteria, because if -16 is okay, what about -15? And what about -14? And there are people on both sides of this issue. This is a difficult one. We do worry about our youngest kids not having a scarf or not covering up, and at the really cold temperatures, there's a chance to get skin irritation rather quickly. So we'll continue to watch this overnight, but I think we're going to be okay. But let's get back to the criteria. So the timing of the decisions is impactful. Most of our parents prefer a decision as soon as possible. So they want to be able to make concrete plans for who's going to watch their kids when it's both parents working. For us, when it's a snowstorm, we generally want to see the conditions. Back when I was still a teacher, I remember one time there was a big forecast, and then the next day it didn't come. And so then everyone, it was a big to-do. It was an honest mistake. But so the lesson from that is, be careful, trust in a forecast, actually see something flying in the air at least, or on the road, before we do a cancellation. But with snow, our goal is to decide by 5 a.m. so that people have some time to react, and our drivers don't start driving to the bus barn and then we say, oh, thanks for driving over here, but now go back home. And so, the consensus of weather forecasts can be tricky. We try to watch different sources. Some of them are, willing to customize it for St. John, Schererville, or Dyer. Some are Chicago reports, but we try to put it all together. We do think 2-hour delays can be helpful when it's snow or ice. We're not so confident that a 2-hour delay is effective with situations like tomorrow, where maybe it's going to go up 1 degree or 2 degrees in 2 hours. So when it comes to wind chill, we're likely either to have school or not have school. So again, as I mentioned earlier, for over 20 years, it's been -20. And for us, generally speaking, when it gets to -5 or 6, that's when a little bit of wind can get you to that -20. We do see, though, that the forecasts seem to be closer on the wind chill than they are on snowfall amounts. So we'll see where that goes. So people ask me often, how do you decide on a snow? What are you going to do? And part of it is the road conditions. So we have several of us that get out and inspect. We have a couple of bus drivers who come from different directions, and our director, and they all report. We have a fellow who does our snow plowing who reports to our director of facilities and tells him what he's seeing. In some cases, when it seems treacherous, we'll call the police and say, are you seeing accidents? Because that impacts us too. If they're already seeing accidents, then that's a good indication that we may want to pause. The next category is tricky, when the weather arrives during the day, and we had this fear last week, as a matter of fact. And so our biggest concern is, once we have our youngest kids at school, we don't want to take them home on a bus and drop them and they go into an empty house. We think our parents have expectations of us that won't happen. So generally speaking, when the weather comes during the day, the most we technically do is cut the high school loose 15 or 20 minutes early to make sure the elementary buses can be on time, at least to start their routes. Because we don't want to drop elementary kids home if their parents haven't gotten back from errands or from work. And then in the end, who makes the final call? Well, if you want to blame somebody, you need to blame me. Ultimately, I'll put the stamp on it. Mrs. Castaneda participates, our transportation director participates, and our director of facility participates. And then we have input from other folks, but ultimately, we try to do the best we can to keep people safe. We tend to be more conservative when it is road conditions, because we know that sometimes people just don't slow down, even though they can see the conditions, but they just are too trained to be in a hurry, and so that tends to be a bigger thing. So I would welcome any further discussion if any of the members of the board have a question this evening, or anybody who's listening at home wants to call me and say your criteria needs to be adjusted. I'm happy to listen to you. So it's not exact science, but we try to do our best to get through school, because most people like to go to school on the regularly scheduled days, not in May. Open it up to questions at this time.
Well, thank you for that. Answers a couple of questions. All right, our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the personnel recommendations.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion from Ms. Kelly,
I'll second.
second from Mrs. Talent. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Marshall.
Aye.
Dr. Malco? Aye. Mrs. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye also. Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my second item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the professional leave request. I'm seeking the board's approval for the professional leave request.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know you were so close. Sorry.
That's okay.
So moved.
Motion from Dr. Malco, and I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco? Aye. Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly? Aye. And I am an aye also. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our Director of Primary Education, Dr. Bracy.
Good evening.
Oh, just a minute. Pardon me.
Couple questions. I just wanted to explain that I didn't realize there was more to your agenda, Mrs. Castaneda, because I only have pages 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 5 did not come through, so maybe I shouldn't have voted for it, but I did because everybody else did. So also, I'm curious about a question that I don't see on here anymore. And we used to not list the FMLAs. Then the attorney said you should list the FMLAs, and now I see we're not listing them again.
So what I was informed at trainings through the ASBO organization is we should not list FMLA,
That was a training through what?
the Indiana Association of School Business Officials.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So we removed those, I think, about a year and a half after I took
Okay.
over.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dr. Bracy.
Good evening. I would like to inform the board and the community about the plans for elementary summer school. This year, elementary summer school will be held at Watson Elementary. It will be the first 2 weeks of June, which is Monday through Friday, June 2nd through 13th. Both weeks will be Monday through Friday. And this year, we are only hosting summer school for those students in 2nd and 3rd grade who do not pass iRead, so we hope there are not a lot of students. And also, the focus will only be on reading this summer. Any questions?
I do.
Yes.
Dr. Bracy, it was difficult for me to hear. Did you say the decision to provide the services was based in 2nd and 3rd grade on what?
The students who do not pass iRead in 2nd and 3rd grade.
I read, okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And for my next item, I am just asking for your approval for the professional leave request provided in your packets.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Marshall and a second from Ms. Talent. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye.
Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our Director of Secondary Education, Mrs. Schoeneman.
Thank you. For my first item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the professional leave requests included in your board packet.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion from Ms. Kelly, and I will second that. Any discussion?
Correct. I had some questions that I had asked you, and I haven't heard back from you, so I'm curious about the request by Ed Beck to go to a Marine Corps Educators Workshop.
Yep, so that is a fully funded trip that he was offered by the Marine Corps to experience as much as they're going to have him participate in, so that he can better guide students who are pursuing that course.
So this is not connected to our curriculum then, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
But it's connected to the Indiana diploma
In what way?
because of the military piece of that and the support within that diploma. So part of the diploma, part of what Dr. Jenner had shared was that there needed to be more information, more education about military, because oftentimes students were enlisting or planning on that throughout all of high school without realizing that, maybe they didn't have certain requirements. And so bringing more awareness to that. And so I believe that this is a push to help inform administrators and then bring that back to the students.
So what about the other branches of the military? When will that happen? I mean,
Right, I don't know.
okay, all right. Then I had another question, but I can ask it. No, Mr. Olenkamp, the DESMOS, D-E-S-M-O-S, can you tell me more about that?
Yes, Desmos, it's basically like an online calculator that students use for the SAT, and they use it in all of our math classes, and the middle school math classes are really utilizing that more and more as well. So it's embedded into most of our standardized tests, and actually our high school math coach also swears by it, that has been what's helped us with our math SAT scores.
So you said it's like an online calculator? for
Basically,
students to use?
yes, that's
Okay.
oversimplified, but
Thank you, and it's nice to see that our journalism students may be going to Ball State for a journalism celebration or conference. That's nice. Okay, enough questions, thank you.
thank you.
All right, so we now will individually vote. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
You know, I am going to abstain from voting on the Ed Beck request just because I don't want to support it and I don't want to deny it. I'm just not real comfortable with it, but everything else I'm okay. And it's nothing to do with the high school and Ed Beck or anything like that, or the Marine Corps. It's just that I struggle with somebody being out of our building for 5 days and would prefer that that doesn't happen. But that's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion 4-1. All right. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. For my second item, I'm seeking the board's approval for the field trip requests also included in your packet.
So moved.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Dr. Malco and a second from Mr. Marshall. Any discussion?
Yes, could you tell me any more about the February 20th Prairie State Jazz Festival? Is that during the day?
For Ms. Lopez at Kaler Middle School.
Yes.
So that is on the 20th, which is Thursday. Yes, during the day. And I believe they attend this one yearly or one similar. And the jazz band, well, you know, that Kaler Jazz Band is something else.
Yes, they are. Would you be able to find out the time that they would be performing?
Yep,
And let us know? So we could maybe run over there?
I will, yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye.
Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. For my third item, I would like to share with the board the proposals for secondary summer school. So for the middle level, we will not be offering a summer school this year. For the high school, we will be offering summer school with a few changes than our typical offerings. The offerings for the high school are as follows. Online synchronous English 9, semesters 1 and 2, and actually, I'm going to pass these down, if you don't mind. Thank you. A paper is coming your way. So again, we'll offer online synchronous English 9, semesters 1 and 2, as well as online synchronous Algebra 1, semesters 1 and 2, as well as physical education. Physical education will have a pull component embedded into it. We're also offering Edmentum credit recovery for English 9, 10, 11, 12, and Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. All classes will run from June 2nd to June 30th, except for PE, and they are from 7:30 to 9:45 a.m. or 9:50 to 12:05 p.m. And then we start on June 2nd. We go June 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th for session 1. And then session 2, June 16th through the 30th. And this does run Monday through Friday. There's no summer school on June 19th. There's also an Indiana Online Academy component that we will be paying for limited summer courses through our online partnership. Free of charge will be personal finance, American Sign Language, all levels. Are there any questions about secondary summer school proposals?
So I have a question. Is the Indiana Online Academy now free of charge to students, or
No.
is there a fee?
So it's free of charge for personal finance, American Sign Language at all levels. But if students want to retake a course using Indiana Online Academy, they can still do so, but they will have to pay the full Indiana Online Academy price.
Is that expensive?
Yes.
Because I remember when it was free, but that was during its initial inception.
It's just under $300.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we
then-
do offer the courses that students need to retake via Edmentum, and that is free of charge.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then the new grade that they receive in summer school replaces the former grade, or how is that handled on the cumulative folder?
So the high school no longer offers full grade replacement. What happens is now, if a student retakes a course, the original grade remains on the transcript. The new grade also is on the transcript. Both factor into the grade point average.
And then I'm sorry, I had one more question. Did I hear you say that there's nothing offered for middle school?
Correct. We are not offering summer school at the middle level this year. What we found last year is we had about 50 students participate, so our student numbers are dropping. The rate at which we are reimbursed from the state for summer school programming has also been dropping. And so, in looking at all of the different numbers, it doesn't provide at that level the sustained academic input that justifies running it.
Can anything be offered to them, like the Edmentum or anything? I mean, there's so much loss that happens over those times when we're not in school, so much loss of learning. It'd be nice if we could at least offer something to those middle school students that need it.
We can put together resources. We do have teachers who, depending on the grade level, will have some summer reading. And even in our 7th advanced math classes, just starting this year over the summer, the receiving algebra teachers in 8th grade had the kids do some of those lessons It wasn't required, but just to help make sure that they're ready to start the year. But we can discuss other options to make sure that we have resources available for families.
I think that's a good recommendation for you to follow just because of that learning. And, you know, they're really not, a lot of students are not into school at that age anyway. So if you can keep the carrot out there and keep that learning going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. And our Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledger.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. Tonight I have two items on my agenda. One I'll be seeking your approval on, and the first one is the Bibbage Elementary School Gaga Ball Pit Eagle Scout Project by Sophia Rodriguez. Before you guys vote, I'd like to introduce Sophia, and she can give you a brief description of what her project is. Sophia?
First of all, do you guys have the printouts?
Yeah, there was in their board packet. Yes.
Do I just use this?
Yes.
There was a small change. So I sent a quote to a rubber mulch company, and they said that they're estimating like $600. I asked for them for discount, so it does change the factor overall for the cost of it. Changes the cost. So then the total is going to be $3,281.66. That still is within my budget, and I do have a good cushion as well because other people did offer me like donations as well. So that is covered there. And then I'm going to start from the beginning again. So I hope to get this approved today, and then from there I can move forward by getting it approved with like the other parts of like my troop and like the council by the end of the week, and hopefully by then I can order the parts. Following that, I hope to have it built or start building it like within 3 days of March on spring break. It's going to be between March 22nd to 26th. And then if it's still kind of cold because of the Indiana weather, I hope to get it done Easter weekend, which is going to be April 18th to 20th. And then for like our labor and where we're going to be like getting people is we're going to be getting like the Boy Scouts and adults to like handle all that. So it's giving them service hours and it's going to be no extra cost to us. And then for the cost, I'm getting funds from like student council as well as my own personal scouting account. I'm like very competitive when it comes to popcorn, and it's really helping out now. So yeah. And then as well, people have offered me donations, but so far it looks like I don't need them right now. And then yet again, I'm borrowing supplies from other people. Does anyone else have any other questions? Anything specifically? Or about the Gaga Ball Pit itself and the game or anything like that? Yeah?
I had a question about the rule signs and the rebar stakes. Those are free?
Yes.
How does that happen? That is really
Yeah, I know, right?
perk.
Yeah. So I have a friend whose father owns a steel mill, and so it just kind of works out there. And then they were also a big part of the troop. So then they offered to help make that for free for me, and I'm like, thank you so much, I appreciate it. And then they also have another friend who kind of does like signs and things like that. And so we just kind of picked out a few designs from online, make sure we bought them, and then they're going to ship them out to some other party, and they're going to be paying for it just like out of treat for me. And then they'll be like laminated, so they'll be like, not laminated, but I think like plexiglass or something. So it'll still be like waterproof and things like that. You're welcome. Any other questions?
So whereabouts will you put this at Bibbage? Do you have an idea?
Yes, I actually did go over with Sherry, and it's going to be like kind of in the center. There's like a big just open area, and that's where we're going to be putting it. So we're going to like rake away the mulch, level out the ground, just a slight hill, put down a weed barrier, put down the Gaga Ball Pit, stake it in with those rebar kind of like big nails, and then we are going to call 811 to ensure that there's nothing underneath. And since we're going to be putting rubber mulch inside just so it's a little softer, we're going to be putting like 1x4 PVC planks all the way around, kind of bolted in, and to make sure that the mulch will stay inside.
It's going to be within the perimeter of the existing playground, and they met with Mrs. Petralia and got it all where they
Very
like
good.
it.
Yep.
Awesome project.
Yes, how
Thank you.
exciting.
Work on it.
Good for you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Sophia. Before you sit, you want to introduce your parents that are with you tonight?
Yeah. So, that's my dad, Jose Rodriguez, followed by my mom, Lupe Rodriguez.
Very good, thank you.
Well, great job.
So with that, I seek your approval on Sophia's project for Bibbage.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion from Ms. Kelly,
Second?
second from Ms. Talent. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco? Aye. Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. That motion passes.
Thank you. Before my next item, I do want to recognize and thank Mrs. Ventrelli in the audience. She was a big help here with facilitating this and helping Sophia, so she was a great help for this, so thank you. And I also had a question that if Bibbage had a Gaga Ball pit, and they do not, this will be their first pit, so they're pretty excited about it.
That's good.
My next item is just kind of a follow-up from my, when I did the optimization review of '24. Since that, we have, I mentioned there, we'd had some incentives in with NIPSCO for the high school, and we did some LED lighting. And since our last meeting, we have gotten incentive checks from NIPSCO, one for $4,200 and another one for $22,585.50. So they have come in since our last meeting as well. That's all I have.
And could you remind us the reason for those checks from NIPSCO?
We replaced existing lighting with some new LED lighting, and basically, with their incentives and everything, we actually, we got them for nothing. And we'll get actually payback as well throughout the years, because the LED uses a lot less energy.
Right. That's part of that optimization?
That's part of the optimization program, yes.
It's a great program.
No, thank you.
All right, and I think you are looking for approval from the board. Yes, Mr. Ledger?
No, not for, that was just information only.
Okay.
For the optimization, the incentive checks.
Thank you. All right, and with that, we have public comments today?
I think Mr. James.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. James.
Last but not
Sorry,
least.
Mr. James.
It's no worries, no worries.
Well, we all know there's no public comments. Okay.
So my first item is to seek your approval for the donations that were included in your board packet.
So moved.
Motion from Dr. Malco,
I'll second.
second from Ms. Kelly. Any discussion? Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Dr. Malco? Aye. Mrs. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item has to do with the Early Literacy Achievement Grant that was established by the state 2 years ago. These are grant funds that are to be used to give stipends to teachers, instructional coaches, and other staff who are responsible for literacy, pushing literacy scores in pre-K through 3, with the emphasis on the IRE 3 scores. And each school district is given a certain amount of money, and then we distribute that amongst the eligible people who meet the criteria. So for the criteria, the people have to be in those positions supporting those students during the 23-24 school year, and they still have to be currently actively employed at the time we do the distribution. So last year in 23-24, the school district received $126,000 to distribute amongst the eligible people. This year, we received $32,000, so only about a fourth of what we had last time.
How much?
32,000, about a fourth of what we did. And that was pretty consistent with many of my peers that I talked to. So, how the formula works and how they determine that, I've never really seen a calculation, but that being said, in order to distribute the funds, we have to get the board's has to pass a resolution that outlines the amount, the gross payroll amounts to the respective people. And so in your packet is the resolution. We have had a modification to the amount that is shown in your board packet. So for pre-K through grade 3 teachers, the ELL teachers, reading specialists, reading interventionalists, literacy coaches, speech language pathologists, speech language pathology assistants, and the library clerks, the gross amount would be $109.61. And then for the paraprofessionals, the tutors, and the perm subs in those pre-K through grade 3 spots, the amount will be $55 as a gross pay. Upon your approval, we will be adding that to the payroll this week on our regular pay date on February 20th. So I seek the board's approval for those gross pay amounts to pay it as a stipend in accordance with the Early Literacy Achievement Grant provisions.
So moved.
Motion from Dr. Malco,
Second.
second from Ms. Talent. Any discussion?
All right, I have a question. Did you announce 10961?
That is correct.
But this document, the board resolution is 11026.
That's why I said that there was an update since the board packet went out.
Oh, okay. And how did you determine, how did you go about determining?
We came up with a flat dollar amount for the paraprofessionals, and then we tried to get as close as we could to have the teachers and the ones who are leading the instruction amount that is approximately twice as much as the para amount. So we played with the numbers, we determined who was in the pool. You know, there's some people who only maybe work 2 days a week, so then their amount is prorated. There's a lot of different calculations into it. So we went with tried to get it as close to as a 2-to-1 ratio, and we were within 40 cents of doing that here.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Sure.
All right, Mr. Marshall.
Aye.
Dr. Malco?
Aye.
Ms. Talent?
Aye.
Ms. Kelly?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we will move on to our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Malco?
I just know very little that the cheerleaders were third in the nation, and I don't know how many competed against them, maybe 40 or 45 I heard. I've not heard yet how the Centralettes did, but I'm sure they did well. There is another Centralette competition this Saturday at the high school. If you'd like to see the girls in action, it's very exciting. So I think the musical is upcoming, right? Yeah. So lots of things going on at Lake Central in addition to all of our athletic programs. So just wishing everybody the best.
Thank you. Ms. Talent?
Yes, as Dr. Malco indicated, I did have the opportunity to attend the Lake Central Education Foundation meeting, and there were like 3 things I would like to point out. One is that the deadline for the teacher grants for Ground 62 is coming up here February 24th. So if any of our teachers, Mrs. Venturelli is a famous one to turn in wonderful grants, and yes, sorry, don't you love this attention? So we would hope that our teachers or administrators would look at the LCEF website or pay attention to the emails that have, thank you, Rob, for sending them out about that announcement for the grants. Also, we have the fundraising opportunity that's coming up. It will be the March 14th through the 17th at the Aquatic Center. It is wonderful that we have cooperation with the Aquatic Center to run their concession stand. Dr. Baracco started long ago the opportunity to come in and have a home-grilled hot dog or hamburgers, so that tradition still carries. So if you want one in the afternoon, come on over. Also, another point that we have is partners in giving to the foundation. It's a new incentive. Once again, our administrator, Don Zernak, and Dr. Veraco discussed this. It's up and running, and so far it's been pretty successful. So those people that have contributed, individuals and businesses, thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly?
I'm just going to wish Sophia good luck on her project. And thank you for coming tonight. I know it's not easy to get up there and talk. So good luck, and we look forward to seeing.
And I just have two things. Dollars for Scholars, we had our Penny Wars. We raised a little over $15,000. 100% of that goes back to our graduating seniors. And our winners were Protzman and Grimmer this year. So thank you to those schools, and all the schools. We appreciate every penny. And then, I just would like to piggyback on Dr. Malco. I know we have a wrestler going to state, and I'm sure there's some swimmers and divers that are headed that way too. So best of luck to all of them and anybody else that we might have missed. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Veraco for a board calendar of future activities.
Thank you. Our next board meeting will be here on Monday, March the 3rd. And everybody have a good, safe, warm evening.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.